Big show coming up tonight. Of course, we got the main event for GOAT status. UFC heavyweights going at it. Stipe Miocic, Daniel Cormier. The third time they've been meeting up. All of this not possible for us without Ringside Beer. Make sure you check them out. ringsidebeerstore.com. Use the promo code FNP. You're going to save 25% off your order. They've got awesome stuff. T-shirts. They've got great tap handles. I've got the Ringside Beer boxing glove tap handle. I've got the MMA glove tap handle. So make sure you check them out. ringsidebeerstore.com. Use the promo code FNP. And for Fight Night Picks viewers only, you're going to save 25% off your order today. So make sure you check those guys out. Get into the ring with Ringside Beer. Without further ado, let's keep getting into it. Fight Night Picks is brought to you by Vertiball. Head on over to their website. It's vertiball.com. And listen, it's an awesome product. It's a local company out of New Brunswick, Canada. So make sure you support those guys locally as well as Fight Night Picks. But they're the only mountable portable muscle massager. They can stick on any smooth surface. They've got an industrial strength suction cup. Can support over 100 pounds of pressure. You can get really into those deep knots. I have one here at home. I use it for my back and my shoulders from holding up that Fight Night Picks Pick'em trophy. But listen, make sure you check them out. It's a great product. Like I said, they're recommended by physiotherapists, masseuses, and chiropractors across Canada, the US, UK, and Australia. And they're used by countless professional athletes like Minka Fitzpatrick on screen there, as well as Clellan Farrell of the Raiders. So if you head into the cart, make sure you check them out. So I've got a Vertiball massager in my cart right there. Use the promo code FNP. You're going to save 10% off your order. You're supporting this company here that I'm very passionate about in New Brunswick, Canada, and you're helping out us as well. So make sure you check them out, vertiball.com, promo code FNP, 10% off your order. And without further ado, let's get into it.
It's time
for 15 minutes of non-stop MMA, tackling the biggest news in the sport. Head into the chat and let us know how you feel. Live from Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, here's your host, Craig Allen.
Ooh, and I am back after a long-needed vacation. Want to thank everybody for joining us today in the chat. It's already going nuts. If you want to help out the show, make sure you hit up the super chat. The message gets put up there a little bit longer. I get a chance to see it for a little bit longer, but really looking forward to this one. As always, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Craig Allen FNP. You can find Matt at Matt Allen FNP. We make it easy with the Fight Night Picks. And at Fight Night Picks, and I want to say this before I start the show, there's a ton of votes out there for some of those main card fights in the community tab of our channel. But the best place to find us, and I'm going to be referencing these picks over on our Instagram, at Fight Night Picks. I put up those squares there in our story so you can vote. I've got them up on my phone, so I'm going to be referencing that quite a bit in terms of what the fan vote is. I know a lot of people go hard on us with, oh, you guys look into the Tapology votes too much. But all we do is at the end of our videos, we toss in what the odds are like at the start of the week. I know TJ Brown's moved quite a bit. I'll get into those and where they're at right now. We'll kind of get a gauge on what the fans are thinking, just kind of give you guys at home an idea of what people are going with. And then ultimately, we've already got our minds made up. It's just an added bonus. So really interesting card coming up this week. We had a great add on. You got Kai Kamaka, the third, taking on Tony Kelly. I'm going to get into that in full. We get about an hour before those prelims starts. I'm really looking forward to this one. Let me know what your picks are for Fight of the Night as well in the comments. We've got a lot of people joining on this week. Seems to be a trend that this show's really picking up. So glad if everybody could join us. I'm going to pop into the chat. Oh boy, Kyle Kelly representing from Western Canada. Hey Dragon, thanks for the insight. Every week we appreciate you guys. Want some nice parlays and picks. Thanks a lot, Kyle, Akashdeep, Hothi, hitting us up. You're here just about every week. Really appreciate you as well. Jairzinho coming off a horrible KO. It only took 3 months off, which is worrying. It is. I'm going to stick with a pick of Junior Dos Santos in that fight. How are we feeling about Fat Herbert? Slightly concerned. Ooh, it wasn't like Fat Tyler, like TJ Dillashaw way back when. Max Murphy going with Felice Herrig. Interesting pick there. Let's see what else. Akashdeep's got JDS. Sage is glad to see me. Yeah, vacation was great. If you ever get a chance, once this kind of crazy stuff ends, maybe go to Prince Edward Island. It was a really good week there. So if we can pop into the start of our prelim card, really short notice fight that came together. You've got Kai Kamaka the third taking on Tony Kelly. Kai Kamaka coming out of Hawaii. Great nickname, the fight in Hawaiian. He's going to have some really notable names in his corner. He's got his brother Tristan, wide receiver at the University of Hawaii. But the two big names, he's got Ronald Jun that you might recognize from some of his fights. way back when, but a Hawaiian legend. He's also going to have Ray Cooper III, PFL champ. You know the wrestling pedigree of Ray Cooper III, and I saw that it was mentioned way up, and you got to give credit where credit's due. Sloppy second saying Kamaka has a wrestling background. Some people are thinking it could be a boring, slow, grinding fight. If you read up, Sean Blizzard does a really good job at Cage Side Press of getting you prepped for a lot of these prospects that are making their UFC debuts, so he's a good guy to follow along there. But that's kind of the not the tail of the tape, but that's kind of the overwhelming thing that you'd hear about Kai Kamaka, maybe before his last fight. The fact that pretty wrestle heavy, gonna bring that fight down to the ground. Naiji, just bleed. Let's go Vera with the $5. Really appreciate you for hitting up the super chat as well. So I'm gonna get back into Kai Kamaka, but again, Kai Kamaka, really wrestling heavy guy. He's been in Vegas since his last fight. He took a fight just about 2 weeks ago, got the win by decision. It was a really good fight, really high Muay Thai stance from him. Orthodox stance, peppered in a lot of nice kicks as well to the body, to the legs, something that you really like to see. Very active fighter. You didn't see a lot of those takedowns again, like you would have expected. So a really good fight out of Kai Kamaka. I was surprised that at the weigh-ins, these guys didn't look too big, and rather Tony Kelly didn't look way bigger than Kai Kamaka, which was a bit of a surprise. Some sites had Kelly listed as 5'10". UFC have him as 5'9", and it looks just about like that. These guys, not a big difference in height, doesn't look like a big difference in reach. So Kai Kamaka, he's an active fighter. He's 5-0 since 2018. Every win a decision. His only finish on his record, and if you want to really dig deep into it, he's got a win over a 1-8 Noi Wheeler. So that was 6 years ago. You can't put a lot of stock into a win like that. Versus Tony Kelly, who was really active for the longest time, had some nice wins over, Levi Moles, and he had that fight that was really close, a split decision loss to Kevin Aguilar for the LFA title. Some people gave it to Kelly. Ultimately, Aguilar wins. We have him in the UFC. We know what kind of a fighter he is. The trouble there, if you look into it, that fight was 5 years ago. The fight with Moles was many years ago. If you look at Tony Kelly's last fight, he fought Andy Brasset on the regional scene. It was a fight where Brasset had been out for a number of times, stepped in on really short notice. It was 5 days notice. Came in really quick. Was throwing really hard punches. It was one of those ones where it's a guy on such short notice taking on somewhat of a recognizable name. So he goes in there, gets a takedown right off the bat, and as Kelly's getting back up, pops in the guillotine, gets the win there. But again, it was a guy that's 2-5 on really short notice. So what can you kind of get out of it? Well, if you look at Tony Kelly on the regional scene and in terms of what he does in training, he's with Dement Bros Boxing Club in Louisiana. I'm probably mispronouncing it again. The people from Louisiana and the people from the Maritimes here in Canada, look at that interaction there. But Brassier City, Louisiana. Justin Deloche is one of those guys that trains there. Really good in terms of jiu-jitsu background and striking, and just really well-rounded guy in a similar weight class to try and learn from. And really a good boxer. That's what I'm ultimately getting at. This guy, a professional boxer, also has Andrea Lee as well. So interesting there. And it's one of those ones where, are we going to see a guy with a record like this coming out of a gym like that, where we've seen this guy in the corner of a lot of different fighters? Is he going to come out like Alex Munoz did last weekend? Or are we going to see him come out like Rafael Fiziev? So it's really tough to try and tell. I like Kai Kamaka III in this fight, but the trouble is, if you look at the line, it's weird. I mean, Kamaka right now, -220 favorite. Opened as a -185, so there's a lot of money that's gone on Kamaka. You got Kelly at +180, and then he opened at a +160. I don't like it that much. Again, Kelly had the long layoff, gets the win. It's a guy who's 2-5 on 5 days notice. You can't put a lot of stock into it. But before that, 5 years ago, he's fighting really good competition. And that's going to go into some of our previews for next week. We're going to be filming those tonight. But it's a tough one. I'm going to go with Kai Kamaka. I wouldn't be surprised if Tony Kelly comes out and blows the doors off him. But Kamaka, with the wrestling background, if he's busy on his feet, he should be able to pick up a decision win. And I think the prop on that was +100 or +110. So let's go back over into the chat. It is filling up. Let's see. Popping way back up. You guys are kind of filling it out with a lot of different fighters. Ghostface Gaming saying Kai by decision. Let's see. It seems like overwhelmingly it's a Kai Kamaka type of affair. And if we look over on the Instagram votes, 48 in favor of Kamaka, 21 for Tony Kelly. So we move on to our next fight on the prelims. We have two guys also making their UFC debuts. You have Chris Dawkis, the brother of the other Dawkis that we saw not that long ago, taking on Brendan Allen. So we flipped through the notes. I mean, this is one of those fights that you can definitely get excited about because these are guys that can certainly finish fights. Parker Porter, if you look at it, fought a 2-rounder at light heavyweight many moons ago against John Jones, the GOAT. I was going to use the word GOAT, but should be a really good fight. Parker Porter, one of those guys, I know in our original video where we were talking about these two guys kind of going at it and what kind of similarities do they have to some of the fighters that you might recognize. Parker Porter, the guy that we came up with was Roy Nelson because moves forward, he'll throw a couple kicks, but he sets up the overhand right, really tries to establish distance with that heavy-handedness. It's a tough one. I mean, these are two guys that maybe you wouldn't have seen in the UFC had it not been for the short notice of this fight. But Chris Dawkis, very well-rounded guy. You look at some of the fights that he's had over his career. He has fought some decent names. I know Zhu Anyanwu was one of those names that we brought up in the video. The fact that the first round of that fight, maybe he should have been able to get a finish. Now, I see Datsud Killicam is saying, next fight, please. This one's going to be a snoozer. They're two heavyweights with finishing ability, so it's definitely not going to be a snoozer, I don't think. I think you're going to see a finish in this fight. To me, Chris Dawkis is a more well-rounded guy, and I see Akash Deep saying, I'm taking Dawkis. Porter seems in terrible condition. Porter, not Bobby Portis, it's Parker Porter. But I don't really see it. I mean, yeah, Parker Porter can definitely land a knockout shot. But to me, I like Dawkis in this fight. If you look over on Tapology, out of all the votes, we got 52 for Chris Dawkis and 21 going with Parker Porter in this one. So it's an interesting one there. Just my 2 cents. Doesn't really like Parker Porter. Dawkis didn't look much better. I don't know. Give me Chris Dawkis. If we look over at the odds quickly, let's see where we're at. Quite a bit. 28% change in favor of Dawkis since the line opened. He opened as a plus 125 underdog. He's sitting at a minus 112 in terms of being a favorite. So it's basically a pick'em type of fight. Parker Porter on average minus 110. So it should be a really good fight. I see Aleem saying, yeah, man, he could be like Andy Ruiz. He could. I mean, maybe he goes all the way up and fights for the title. Who knows? But a guy later on in his career, a guy known for his fight against Gabriel Gonzaga. He fought Gonzaga. He fought John Jones. Feather in your cap. Here you are years later fighting in the UFC. So neat story for Parker Porter. And again, Chris Dawkis with the brother who had a really good fight not that long ago against Brendan Allen on short notice. CFFC champ. Chris Dawkis was supposed to be fighting Sean Teed for the CFFC belt this week, but it didn't happen. JNK saying, so your final pick is Chris? Yes, I'm going with Chris Dawkis. And in the first fight, going with Kai Kamaka, the third. So it should be a really good one. And I'm really looking forward to this one. I see Andrew saying that this is a coin flip. Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're two heavyweights that are coming out from that regional scene. You never know what you're going to get, especially CFFC guys. Now I have to lay my cards on the table. I never wear fighter shirts. I had to order a great one. It has to do with the main event. But how many people are you going to see wearing a CM Punk UFC shirt? Had to get it for myself. Had to. Yeah, great CFFC commentary. And there's a lot of guys coming out of that regional brand that you're going to see popping up in the UFC in short order. I know Matt, this is a tough last name, Semmelsberger, that we're going to see coming up next week, taking on a tough out in Carlton Minus. So should be a really good one. But yeah, going with Chris Dawkis in this one to get the win over Parker Porter. So we move into our next fight, and I don't really get where the line is again. With women's fights, especially in this division, it's tough to try and gauge it. And Livinha Souza in her last fight against Brianna Van Buren, I know I took Souza. I know Van Buren won, and she beat her quite soundly. We haven't seen Souza in some time since that last fight. For Ashley Yoder, I know the record might look a little bit salty at 7-5. I mean, you got the former Invicta champ in Souza. And Ashley Yoder, I mean, she's been there and done that. She's fought really tough competition since she came out of the Ultimate Fighter Season 23. Had a win there over Jodie Esquibel, the boxer. She lost to Kate Jackson, who's looked really good over in Bellator. Hasn't strung together a title run yet, but she was very close. But the losses, I mean, Justine Kish, Angela Hill, Mackenzie Dern. She beats ABC, Amanda Bobby Cooper. who's no longer in the UFC. Siri Kondo, she gets a unanimous decision win there, but Kondo lost 3 in a row in her UFC tenure. And then she lost a split to Randa Marcos. And to me, Randa Marcos is a really tough out. You can try and discredit her, but she's always pushing forward, always taking on tough competition. And it should be a really good one. I'm really looking forward to this fight. I think it should be a good one. But to me, I just see it overwhelmingly for Livinha Souza, taking on the tougher competition. The fact that the line is where it is really kind of surprises me. A lot of money's come in on Ashley Yoder, about a 29% change according to bestfightodds.com. If you look over at that right now, Livinha Souza opened as a minus 250 favorite, came up, and now she's sitting at an average of minus 167 for Yoder. She opened as a plus 195, sitting at a plus 140. Bit of a surprise there. Ghostface Gaming saying neither has top 15 ability. I certainly think that Souza very well could, because if you look at the top of that division, it's not like you have, and it is the best, division in women's MMA or UFC women's MMA, but it's one of those ones that if you're picking a path to victory for Ashley Yoder, I saw a lot of people out there over in the comments under this video saying, well, Ashley Yoder has such a height advantage, such a reach advantage. It's going to play a big factor, but it's not like she's a squeaky polished striker. Somebody like Fleece Herrig, who has a really good kickboxing background that we're going to see further on in this fight. It could happen. 21 saying Yoder, last 5 fights all went to the distance. Souza finishes her. It's tough to see it going that way. I know a lot of people trying to figure out the over-under on this one. I'm going to pull it up. Sometimes on Best Fight Odds, it's tough. So 2.5 seems to be the going rate, and the over is a heavy favorite, minus 365 for the over. I'm gonna stay away from that. I'm just gonna go with Souza, because again, I'm pretty surprised that you can get her on most sites. Like I said, the average is a minus 167, so should be a really good one. I see the comment there, ASDASD 2 times saying I hope Souza wins, but look at the height and reach advantage. I know, but it is what it is. Charlie Chips, hi Craig, how's it going? Let's see, just my 2 cents. It's WMMA, so you never know. Yoder makes most fights 50-50. Souza by sub is plus 117. And Sergio saying Souza could be the safest bet. I'm going with Souza. I wouldn't go as far as saying it's a lock of the night, but I really do like that one. Ghostface Gaming asking if we're going to do Bellator. After this is all done, Matt's going to come over during the pay-per-view. We're going to get our picks going for Munoz and Edgar, which is coming up next weekend. So thanks for asking. We'll see what we can do time-wise. I'm traveling next week, so I'm not going to have a lot of time to do a whole lot more. So you're going to get those UFC picks, and maybe there's a possibility we can do something else, but probably not because there's a lot going on. So next fight, TJ Brown taking on Danny Chavez. I'm kind of surprised where the line is on this one, because you got Danny Chavez making his UFC debut. It's one of those fights that you can't overlook. I really think Chavez has a lot of great value, really good boxing in his back pocket. Guy coming out of MMA Masters. You see Colby Covington over there now. We've seen bigger fighters, Ricardo Lamas there as well. And I really do think that he slept on. I see Dame 1-1 saying biggest locks of the night. I'll get to that a little bit later. Rafi Dinos making a really good point, saying this whole card is coin flips. And yeah, and I saw it on Twitter. A couple of guys really going at it saying, oh, there's never any coin flips in MMA. There's a lot of fights that could be coin flips in MMA, and you can do as much tape study as you want. You can really get into it. Look at Parker Porter and Chris Dawkis. You're talking about 2 regional heavyweights making their UFC debuts, and just pick 'em odds. Guys that either get knocked out or knock people out. That's as big of a coin flip as it gets. I really like what it could happen. 21 saying on this fight. Ace of Sports, Marin also going Chavez by knockout. If TJ Brown, if that weight cut was as bad as it was, and again, you saw him weighing in at 146.5, so he missed that 1 pound tolerance by half a pound. It's not good, didn't look great on the scale, but you know how good his jiu-jitsu is. You know how good Danny Chavez's striking is. And I saw a lot of people in the comments as well trying to find tape on Danny Chavez. It was out there. You just really, really had to mine. It was a tough one. So if we look over at the odds quickly, 22% change in the price for Danny Chavez. He's sitting right now. He opened as a plus 155, went up as high as plus 180. Now he's sitting at a plus 117 average on Best Fight Odds. If you look over at TJ Brown, opened as a minus 195, got as low as minus 240 when the fight was announced on the 7th, and now sits at a minus 141. So a bit of a surprise there. I see Blue Star Seed, you really don't think Chavez is going to get the win. Derek Anthony saying TJ Brown by submission. Yeah, it's an interesting fight. if we look over at the picks on Instagram, we have 55 votes for TJ Brown coming out of a good camp. I mean, this is a guy that trains primarily with Bryce Mitchell, and if you know what Bryce Mitchell can do, you think maybe the ceiling's there for TJ Brown. He's taken on names that you recognize on the regional scene. I know Peter Barrett's debut didn't go great against Yusuf Salal, but that was a guy that he fought there as well. Kyle Kelly chiming in saying that Chavez, a nice underdog pick. I think TJ gets tired and Danny gets a finish in round 2 or 3. Naiji is saying TJ by sub, call it. Yeah, it really is tough. I don't think that Danny Chavez is going to get the win. I think in terms of underdogs in this fight card, though, that might be a good pick if you really do believe in, his striking. But for me, TJ Brown with his submission abilities, if he can bring the fight to the mat, you look at what he did to Jordan Griffin for the first half of that fight until he got caught in a submission. I see it an easy one for TJ Brown. And again, 55-20 in terms of the votes for Brown over Chavez. So we move forward. We look at an interesting fight between Vera Jandiroba taking on Felice Herrig, the little bulldog. And we haven't seen Felice Herrig in a really long time. Last time that she fought was against Michelle Waterson back at UFC 229. McGregor versus Habib. It's been a really long time. And Felice Herrig in that fight definitely didn't go her way. Now, she's fought really good competition for the longest time, hence her record sitting at 14-8. But we haven't seen her get a win in the octagon for some time. I mean, we talk about that Michelle Waterson fight, but the last time she got a win was at the end of 2017, a split decision win over Courtney Casey. Before that, Justine Kitch. I know Matt and I talked about it, or Matt focused on it, the win over Alexa Grasso. Early 2017, we're going back 3+ years to get into that, whereas Vera Jandiroba, the former Invicta champ, we know how good her jiu-jitsu is. We know what the line looks like. 50% change in the line in favor of Vera Jandiroba. Opened as a -155, sits at a -300 roughly on best fight odds, and I've got it by way of Jandiroba. Listen, I mean, I see it over in the comments. Ace of Sports saying Herrig by upset. Anthony R going with Herrig is live here. What else do we have? Let's see. Lewis F. Herrig looked huge at the weigh-ins. Herrig is bigger than listed. Yeah. Orlando. Yeah. Felice Herrig all day. I don't see, Felice Herrig getting the win here. Nice Hendo saying Kamaka or Kelly WTF. I mean, I've been there and I've done that. That was the first fight on the card. I'll go back through and talk about them again. But for your benefit, because I'm a nice guy coming off a vacation, I went with Kamaka over Kelly. Thank you, Sloppy Seconds, for filling that one in. Derek Anthony saying Verna's a lock. I really do like Vera Jandiroba. I know, if you look at it, the one loss is tough, and the UFC win that she has wasn't over a big name by any means. But if you really look into it, Carla Esparza is a tough out for anybody. She continues to improve every fight out there. And realistically, even a top 5 fighter at strawweight, and we're talking about the best division in women's MMA right now, especially in the UFC at 115, Carla Esparza is a tough out for anybody up there. Jandiroba comes in on somewhat a short notice. It wasn't as short notice as the fights that are getting thrown together now, but loses the decision there. Beats Mallory Martin by submission. Was booked against Livinha Souza back at the end of 2019. Now she gets Felice Herrig. If Herrig can get moving, and if she can really, implement her kicks, implement kickboxing, Felice Herrig is a good chance. Has underrated jiu-jitsu. But again, and I see Derek Anthony saying it, she's coming off major reconstructive surgery with her leg. JB hitting us up with the 2099. Holy crow. Appreciate that with the super chat. Love what you're doing, bro. Keep it going. Want a lot of money from you guys. Well, I appreciate you for sure. And JB, I mean, we're really looking at retooling the merchandise. It was something that we kept on our site for a long time. People weren't all that interested. I still have some stock here. But it's one of those things that we're looking to retool moving forward. So you're going to see that coming out hopefully somewhat soon. We can put in an order. And I'm looking to put that together. But I'll put that away for now as we move into it. And I see Morgan Smith saying, can you go over your favorite underdogs at the end? I will. Andrew Van Zee saying, Herrig coming off an ACL surgery. No way she wins. I mean, she's been off for a really long time, though, but that's a really tough one. And Rafi, I don't think Verna is mid-low level MMA fighter. I don't think she is. And Anthony R. saying Verna's beat no one. Well, I mean, okay, you want to go into it? We'll go into it. We'll look at it quick. We got about a half hour left. Before the fights, or a little bit more than a half hour. So let's look into it. Again, former Invicta champ. We're looking at some of the wins. Lisa Ellis isn't a bad one. If you go through a lot of women in and around these weight classes, Lisa Ellis has fought them. If you look at the win over Mizuki Inoue, split decision, it was a really tough fight. I went back and had a look at it. Mizuki Inoue's got a fight coming up next week that we'll preview tonight. She is taking on, let me see, Amanda Lemos, and that should be a really good one. Lemos had that long time off between bantamweight, pop back down to the lower weight classes, and then she beat Janessa Mirandin, and that was a good win as well, got the submission there. So the Mizuki Inoue fight, close one, but again, we're talking 2 years off. Sergio Flores with Super Chat, I appreciate you as well, and everybody talking about the merch, well, I'm glad I dropped that one in there. Alex Trujillo saying you guys are the best MMA show. I appreciate it. Let's move on from Vera Jandiroba and Felice Herrig into one of the most contentious picks that's out there. And the one thing I will do, because I didn't do it, if we pop back in and we look at Vera Jandiroba, so 60 votes over on the Instagrams for Vera Jandiroba, 16 for Felice Herrig. So interesting one there. Now, Jim Miller and Vinc Pichel, if you look at it over on Instagram, 61 votes for Miller versus 20 for Pichel, which seems to me like a bit of a surprise. I know the money's come in on Vinc Pichel actually at about 43%, the second biggest movement in the line according to Best Fight Odds. If you look over at it right now, Jim Miller opened as a minus 180, currently sitting at a plus 104 average. Vinc Pichel opened as a plus 140, sitting at a minus 130. I was kind of surprised by that. I would think Pichel, I mean, he looked in really good shape standing on the scales, but I think he ballooned up a little bit more. Jim Miller, not the biggest guy at 155 in terms of size, but should be a good one. I can see a lot of people picking Jim Miller over and over again, and that's probably going to be the theme over in the comments section, and I get it, and Matt picked Jim Miller, and I could see it happen. Jim Miller's one of those guys, really heavy left hand, really good counters if you're backing him up, really nice leg kicks, and of course, you know how good his jiu-jitsu is for sure. This is the better of the Millers. This is Dan Miller that we're talking about. Jim has had longevity. We go over that losing streak. We're talking about really good guys. Dan Hooker in there, Trinaldo in there, on and on and on. Josh Reimer hitting us up with a super chat. I appreciate you. This is kind of crazy. Love what you guys do here. I play a lot of daily fantasy sports, DraftKings, FanDuel, and you guys are a major part of my research process. Thanks again. Well, listen, I appreciate it. It's a lot of fun researching. I know, you know, I in little inside baseball for next week. The Semmelsberger, I got to get his name right before I actually film it. And Carlton Minus, that was a really tough one to try and do a lot of research for, but I'm really looking forward to it. So, Jim Miller, Vinc Pichel. Vinc Pichel, decent wrestling. I know the stats don't back it up, but go watch the fights. Kind of give you a sense of what Vinc Pichel's wrestling is like. His striking's great, and I think that's where it kind of worries you. If Scott Holtzman could do what Scott Holtzman did in the Jim Miller fight, and that's not to say that Miller didn't tag him, but if Scott Holtzman could kind of pick up a pace, if Vinc Pichel can do that over 3 rounds, it should be a fight that Vinc Pichel can win. But again, I could see Jim Miller winning it. It's one of those ones that is a tough call. Honest to goodness, it's a really tough call. I get that a lot of money's coming on Pichel. I get that a lot of votes are for Jim Miller. So you can see it either way. Really want to know what you're thinking about this fight. Just my 2 cents going with Miller. Pat Bain saying, did Craig pick Vinc? I did pick Vinc. And I'm going to stick with that one. You're not really going to see me swaying from any of my picks here. So it's tough. And Trent Bossiam saying, how was Miller's chin? I mean, Augusta Wynn's not knocking him out, so there's that. Scott Holtzman didn't knock him out, but a lot of really good fighters were beating him, and we're talking about like top-tier fighters. Massaran Duba is still a top-tier fighter at whatever he is, 42, 43. Look at the way that he knocked out Jai Herbert. So, should be a really good one. I'm really looking forward to this fight. Super underrated one. I know the hardcores, you guys are really looking forward to it, and I think it should be a great one. And Charlie Chip saying Pichel is a really, really tough dude. Look at the injuries he had. Like the Njokwani fight, broke his orbital, torn labrum, tore his bicep. His tricep was in a tough way. And Rafi saying Craig doesn't sway. Oh, I've swayed and I've lost. I've lost when I sway, so I'm not going to sway. But yeah, Vinc Pichel has been through a lot. You look at the crazy motorcycle accident that he had not that long ago, a couple of years ago, hit and run, kind of get the road rash and all that. But either way, like I said, should be a really good fight, and I'm really looking forward to it. Pat Bain, let's go. Vince baby. Let's get into this fight. This fight should be a crazy one. You know what the scrambles are going to be like. You know the fact that Merab Dvalishvili in his last fight against Gustavo Lopez looked insane. Trouble is, again, Gustavo Lopez coming in on short notice. Bit of a salty record, former Combate champ. It was a really good one. Let's see what everybody's thinking about this one in the comments. I'll spoil it with the Instagram vote. So 60, let's see, 58 for Merab Dvalishvili and 28 for John Dodson. Interesting one because if you talk about it, John Dodson, his scrambles are legendary. I mean, yeah, he didn't beat Demetrius Johnson twice, but John Dodson's been fighting the best of the best. He's 35 years old now, and he's fought some of the top talent at 25 and at 35, and he never shies away from a fight like this, especially where he got a win over a big prospect Nathaniel Wood in his last fight where he knocked him out. Probably lost the first round, was losing a bit of the second, and knocks him out in the third. Merab's been on an absolute tear. The Frankie Saenz fight was weird. The fight against Ricky Simon was weird. Did he win it? Was it really a submission? Whatever. Since then, he's looked amazing. His striking's unorthodox. He throws those spinning back fists that rarely ever hit unless you're Ralphie and Stotts. But again, if we're looking at John Dodson, look at the losses. Demetrius Johnson, John Lineker by split, Marlon Moraes by split, Piotr Jan, Jimmy Rivera. Those are that's really good company. And I'm not surprised that a lot of those fights, for the most part, have been somewhat close. So if you look at this one in and of what it's worth, Merab Dvalishvili, if he can put the pressure on, you saw them at weigh-ins. John Dodson's always going to be the smaller guy at 135. I know he weighed 136. Cameron saying Dodson scrambles too good. Merab's too wild on the feet. I expect Dodson to keep getting back to his feet and landing power. Yeah, I could see that too. Cameron, a great member of the recap show. Apologies, Cameron. I was away, didn't have good internet connection whatsoever. We're talking about kilobyte upload and download speed, so it was bad last weekend, but you get a recap this weekend. Fingers crossed. And Hazmat Control saying, I'm thinking Dodson has a clear path to victory if he can keep it standing. Yeah, I mean, Michigonian, gatekeeper if he beat Wood. I don't think John Dodson's a gatekeeper. When you're at that age and you have that many losses attached to your record, I can see why people might start to say, oh, well, is John Dodson a gatekeeper? But I certainly don't think so. I thought Merab looked fine at the weigh-ins. I'm not worried about that. And Jason saying my ex-wife went to high school with Dodson, said he was tiny with a big afro. Nice guy. I think so too. I'm going with Merab to get the win. It's probably one of those fights that's going to go to a decision. Let's see what the odds are sitting at right now. Merab's the third biggest shift in the line at 35% according to Best Fight Odds. And let's see. He's sitting at an average of minus 263. Open is a minus 170. John Dodson open plus 145. Currently sitting at plus 215. So it should be a really good fight. I know Idre saying Dodson has good defense, gets back up fast. I really think so as well. Let's see. Who's your most confident pick? We'll get into that when we recap the whole thing. We still have a half hour and we still have 4 fights left. So let's get into the weirdest fight. The weirdest fight to me is Herbert Burns and Daniel Pineda, because I saw this one as clear cut. I saw this one as like a lock of the night type fight. I thought the Blaze, Herbert Burns, all day is going to get the win over Daniel Pineda. And I know Pineda's last 2 wins, you can't discount them whatsoever. You can't say, oh, well, they're no contest because, illegal substance, this and that, and a ton of test in his system. I don't care. Daniel Pineda looked great over JBC, Junior Bacon Cheeseburger, Jeremy Kennedy, the Canadian. And his other win over Kabulev, and I get it. I know Herbert Burns didn't beat him, and we're talking a few years ago. That's kind of the trouble for me, is we're talking years in terms of Burns. We're talking Pineda, who just picked up the win over Kabulev back, in October of 2019. In the same night, he's supposed to fight in the finale of the PFL's featherweight championship. Didn't happen because of that positive test. Whereas Herbert Burns, when he fought him, and I get it, you look and you pick and choose and you come up with an idea, but the losses, Kabulev, that was back over 3 years ago. Then he lost another one to Magomed Idrisov, and then after that, it's just been finish win. And you can't overlook the win over Derek Minner. That's a big one on Contender Series, a guy who has good jiu-jitsu. I know it didn't work out against Grant Dawson. Nate Landwehr, good wrestler, got way too wild in that fight. And then you look at the other one too, and over Evan Dunham, and Evan Dunham's Evan Dunham. And I know he got cut, and that's kind of weird that they cut him after that loss. But yeah, he just got cut this week. So I see the really good questions coming in. Brad Ski saying, how do you feel about Burns missing weight, or was it planned like Dariush did last weekend? he didn't look super drawn out. He didn't look terrible, but weighing in 149.5 is not good. That's a tough one. If you look at Daniel Pineda, and I see Pineda had a milli taken from him, that's got to light a fire inside him. He's 35. And he didn't. Lance Palmer would have beaten Daniel Pineda. I mean, we got to be honest with ourselves. Lance Palmer would mop the floor with Daniel Pineda. I don't think Pineda would have submitted him. I think it would have just been Lance Palmer, rinse and repeat, like he always does. Now, Herbert has been able to train with Gilbert all pandemic. Can't discount having someone that good to train with. And I know there's a lot of, Burns comparisons, Herbert, Gilbert. It didn't work for Gilbert at 55. He moved to 70 in terms of weight. Well, Herbert didn't work at 45 in this one. Are we going to see Herbert Burns moving up to lightweight in his next fight? I think that's a conversation that should definitely happen. No, please saying he rushed his weight cut. That's bad. He's still a beast. I'm going to stick with the pick of Herbert Burns. I'm kind of surprised that the line hasn't moved, a whole lot. If you look at it in terms of the entire card, it's one of the ones that it's moved 26% since it opened for Burns. And if we look at it where it sits right now, Burns was at one point minus 260. He opened as minus 200, sitting at minus 270. So the late money's kind of coming in on Herbert Burns. I think that's still a safe pick. I'm going to go with Burns to get the win there. Pineda, again, jiu-jitsu's great. Finishing ability's there. He either wins by finish or loses by finish. But yeah, I don't see it for Daniel Pineda in this one. So we move forward. We look at a really contentious fight. And this is one of those ones that over on Instagram, kind of surprised where it was at. We've got 48 votes for Jairzinho Rozenstruik. We've got 44 for Junior Dos Santos, the former UFC heavyweight champ, had that crazy fight against Cain Velasquez, and then again, he's had the 3. I know it's that montage that they're going to show before the fight, or that they showed in the countdown. You had BJ Penn, Matt Hughes, you had JDS and Cain Velasquez, and now you have JDS taking on Jairzinho Rozenstruik, who suffered defeat for the first time in the MMA cage when he took on Francis Ngannou, who threw the windmills at him and knocked him out completely cold up against the cage. That was a mere, a few months ago, which really bugs me. I see Orlando saying Jairzinho is going to clip him, and I think that that's not that crazy. I don't think that's the worst pick. And Trent Bossiam saying Santos is in the best shape, ready to chase the belt. We've seen older fighters with questionable chins where they come out and look like they were in great shape and said, I've had the best camp of my life, and they still get knocked out. It happens. It does happen. Now, I know that was a major talking point for me in our video from when did we film it? I think it was last Friday when we filmed it, put it out on Saturday before the fights. I still believe in it. I mean, Junior Dos Santos was in great shape. Jairzinho Rozenstruik, for what it's worth, really good counter striker. We know how good his kickboxing is, representing Suriname, pro kickboxer. You look at it, I don't know how much you can look into it in terms of those countdown shows and the embeddeds, because Jairzinho Rozenstruik, well, I was training by myself. I did a lot of, weightlifting, a lot of conditioning drills, which could be the case, or he could have done the Max Holloway. I was training on Zoom, which is, I was really bringing fighters in on camp, and we actually did train together. So yeah, it makes sense. J&K saying Biggie Boy's one loss. You can't judge him for losing to Ngannou. You can't, but they just fought. And for JDS, I mean, he's fought the best of the best since he came into the UFC. And you can kind of, disagree with me if you want, but let's look at Junior Dos Santos. His first fight in the UFC, Fabrizio Verdum, UFC 90, knocks him out 2008. Then Struve, Krokop, Gilbert Yvel, Gabriel Gonzaga, Roy Nelson, Carwin, beats Velasquez, beats Frank Mir, loses to Velasquez, and so on and so forth. But it's always been good competition. Yeah, the Tai Tuivasa fight might not have been the best of competition, but he finishes him. He finishes Derek Lewis, and then he loses by knockout to Blades and to Ngannou. And that's where you do have to worry about it. Derek Anthony saying glass jaw, meh, maybe. Cameron here saying JDS best game plan would be to pressure, make it ugly in the clinch, a distance kickboxing match, and Biggie Boy knocks him out. I think so too. And if you look at Biggie Boy, the best thing that he does is he throws those really nice high kicks that sometimes you see at a Derek Lewis. But anyway, you know what you're going to get out of Rozenstruik. With JDS, if he can start to string together the boxing combinations, push the pace, do what we've seen him do in some of his big wins. Again, the Lewis fight, you saw Derek Lewis getting the big win over Alexei Oleinik just last weekend. I really do think that Junior Dos Santos can get the win here. I'm kind of surprised, and I'm kind of surprised where we're at in terms of the odds. We have Rozenstruik minus 127 favorite. More money coming in right now on him. Open as a minus 140. You got Junior Dos Santos sitting around a plus 105. So Rozenstruik's your favorite here. He did get knocked out not that long ago. Booch is saying Biggie Boy overrated. No, he's not overrated because, look what he was able to do on the way up. Discount it if you want, the fight against Alan Crowder. He threw out pretty much a jab and knocked Alan Crowder on his rear end and had him pretty well finished. So, and he was knocking people out all the way. The fights that scare me, though, again, the Alistair Overeem fight, if you're a big Jairzinho Rozenstruik fan, you can't forget about that because, Overeem pushed him right up until the end where he landed the knockout blow. The Arlovsky fight finished him in 29 seconds. Crowder was 9 seconds. Albini was into the second round. The other thing about Junior Dos Santos, you worry about the game plan too in terms of what's he going to bring in to this fight. Are we going to see the boxing? Are we going to see the jiu-jitsu? Are we going to see the wrestling? I see that Chief Hindsight Analyst, I'm Jake Collier's dietitian, and Matt Hughes driving coach. I'd be interested to see what you're thinking on this one. But yeah, I'm going to stick with the pick of Junior Dos Santos in this one. Not the most confident because, again, Jairzinho could clip him when he comes in, which we've seen him do before. He could push a pace, which has worked for him in the past. But Dos Santos, as long as he can keep his head out of the way, should be able to get the win. So I'm really looking forward to this one. I see a lot of differences in the voting. And now we get into the most contentious pick. And if you look into the community section of our YouTube channel, I'm going to pop over there right now. This one has 1,400 votes. 73% of fans going with Sean O'Malley to get the win, and you have 27% going with Chito Marlon Vera to get it. So it's going to be interesting to see what everybody thinks over in the chat. If we look over on Instagram, 76 votes for O'Malley, 20 for Vera. So it seems like a lot of people going with Sean O'Malley in terms of the votes, but in terms of the commentary, just about everybody going with Marlon Vera. I saw it in the comments all week that there are a lot of people that are thinking that Marlon Vera is going to win. I don't think that we discounted anything that he did. I was trying to think of my words there because Marlon Vera is one of those guys that can really get it done in every single different way. He's a Swiss Army knife of MMA, if you want to put it that way. We talk about guys, and we'll do it every now and again when we will compare an MMA fighter to a baseball player. You have 5-tool players, somebody that can do it all. Stipe Miocic is one of those guys. His wrestling's great, his boxing's great, his clinch work is awesome. Stipe Miocic, 5-tool player. Marlon Vera is pretty darn close to that and really trains at a good gym to work his striking, especially in this fight with Jason Perillo. You know him from the corners of Chris Cyborg, Michael Bisping, RDA, so on and so forth. There's not a ton of fighters that train there. Marlon Vera is one of those guys. You know that his ground game is very good. You look at the knockouts that he's had, and you look at the record that he's had. The Kennedy fight bugs me because they put a lot of stock into it. Guido Kennedy, maybe not the best guy to put on your highlight reel, but the Frankie Saenz win where he hit him with that left, that was amazing. Nolene Hernandez, that's a good win. No longer, we haven't seen him in quite some time. Andre Ewell, that was a great win. And then in his last fight, loses the decision to Song Yadong in a fight that was really close. I see a lot of people talking about Marlon Vera getting a submission. This is where I'd want to go. If you look at this and, we've got a lot of, fighting going on here. I see Pitbull Lash saying O'Malley's overrated. I see Elder saying Cheeto by sub. I see a lot of people saying, well, Marlon Vera's black belt in jiu-jitsu. Sean O'Malley's a purple belt. It's really tough to try and put all that into account. Sean O'Malley, for the time that he was out, you look at the win over Terrion Ware, you look at the wins all the way up, the Kashakian win that he had on Contender Series, and then he took all that time off. And I see Mark Alexander saying O'Malley isn't a Conor clone, but people are writing him off, just like they did Conor early on. This is the worst part, and this is the thing that bugs me. People are comparing Sean O'Malley to Edmund Shabazian. Well, have you seen cardio issues from Sean O'Malley in his fights? Maybe you did on the regional scene. Maybe you're worried that, the fight against Andrei Sukumtoth, he was on his back. Yeah, but he broke his foot. And so he had all that time off. You know he worked on his striking. You know that he worked on his jiu-jitsu for sure. This is a guy that trains under Augusto Mendes, and if you want, please check out Augusto Mendes. I know his UFC record wasn't all that great. He was later on in his career to get into MMA, but he is a jiu-jitsu ace, an ADCC champ, an IBJJF champ. He's done so much in the grappling community. That's the main guy that he trains with. He's got Tim Welch and Augusto Mendes. Those are two perfect guys to get ready in terms of your jiu-jitsu. Brandino saying, I know it's just words, but O'Malley's been talking about how much jiu-jitsu he's done over the last 2 years. So, Sean O'Malley has the grappling acumen that he needs. His striking's great, but he's finished everybody. Marlon Vera's never been finished, and I see that. I see Trilly Nelson saying, has Chito ever been finished? No. I see Blue Star Seed saying, dude is a hippie. Well, who cares? It doesn't matter. Nick Mathis saying Sean has that unique style. It's a super intriguing fight because if you look at it, Sean O'Malley, quick starter. We saw that in the Eddie Wineland fight. We've seen it in the majority of his fights. If we go back 5 fights ago, Kashakian, that was 3 years ago, knocked him out. Tyrion Ware, decision, 2 years, 8 months ago. Sukumta, 2 years, 5 months ago. The long layoff 5 months ago, he knocks out El Teco, Jose Alberto Quinones, and then he knocks out Eddie Wineland. So it's interesting that it's gone that way. Again, Josh Reimer saying Vera's never been finished, but he's also never faced a guy with the weapons that O'Malley has. I agree. I think Sean O'Malley is going to be able to get the win, and if he's going to get it, it's got to be one of those quicker ones. Dame asking, is this 3 rounds or 5? Josh Reimer hitting us up with a 3. It is 3. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Sean O'Malley here. A good question by Tak Bilo. I hope I pronounced that somewhat close, but appreciate you tuning in from Poland. We're big KSW guys. Do I think Vera lost the last fight? It was really close. Song Yadong's a great prospect as well. Thomas Hewitt saying Chito is the new Nate Diaz. Oh, pump the brakes. But yeah, I'm going to go with Sean O'Malley in this one. I can certainly see a path to victory for Marlon Vera. I don't really like just the straight up odds because Sean O'Malley opening as a minus 230, sits at minus 273 as an average on best fight odds. That's something that I wouldn't get into. Brad Ski saying Sean is a great striker. What is Vera good at? Vera's good at counter striking. Vera's good at jiu-jitsu. Vera's good at throwing leg kicks, going everywhere. Vera's good just about everywhere. And like I was saying, like if we're talking about 5-tool players, Marlon Vera is probably the closest to a 5-tool player. Now, the other trouble and the other thing I want to say, because I still have 14 minutes left, is that a lot of people are saying, well, Sean O'Malley hasn't taken on the best competition. Eddie Wineland's good competition, 7-8 years ago. That's true. Former WEC bantamweight champ. Jose Alberto Quinones, maybe not the best guy. Andre Sukumtoth, not in the UFC anymore. Tyrion Ware, not, but look at that guy's record. The fight against Merab. Tom Duquesnoy was another one. And Sean O'Malley. And then Alfred Kashakian, who, Sergio Pettis knocked him out in his Bellator debut. But they're names. They are names. And for Marlon Vera, it seems like he's been around with the UFC forever, even though he's only 27 years old. And you talk about the names, a lot of people are putting a ton of stock into the fact that Marlon Vera's fought really, really big names. Let's go through them. Marco Beltran, Roman Salazar, Davey Grant, Guan Yu Ning, Brad Pickett, but that was at the end of Brad Pickett's career. Brian Kelleher was on a bit of a spell. Then we're talking good names. John Lineker, Douglas Silva, De Andrade. Loses those two by decision. Those are big names. Beats Luigi Beren. Beats Guido Canetti. Signs Nolene Hernandez. Andre Ewell was a really good win. Just absolutely on top of him, finishing him. So for me, I wouldn't really put those too much stock into Vera's big or big name or name quality of the wins. But yeah, I really do think Sean O'Malley is going to be able to get the win here. If I'm wrong, I eat my words, but I'm going to stick with the pick. And then we get to our main event. I see no police saying fight of the night, DC or Stipe. This should be a great one. Listen, it's a third fight. You saw Stipe in the first fight. Was he picking up a little bit of steam? DC picks up a little bit of his own steam and tosses that right hand in there. Nice short right. Knocks down Stipe. Finishes him. Then in the second fight, it's all Cormier early. Stipe makes that late adjustment and then gets in there throwing those uppercuts, the left to the body, really starts to pepper him. You heard the commentary and you heard Stipe's corner saying he's hurt. And then he goes in there and just absolutely mollywops him up against the cage. So now we come here into our third fight. And it's weird because if you look at it, And I saw the question that was out there in the comments saying, have we ever seen guys that have fought each other 3 times in a row? They didn't, because Daniel Cormier fought Stipe, and then he won the belt, and then he fought Daniel Cormier, and he defended the belt, and then he lost to Stipe, and now they fight again. Whereas Stipe, for him, yes, it is 1, 2, 3. So it's an interesting one in terms of that, because they're showing the fight footage, the fact that Daniel Cormier can pretty well do whatever he wants, but he does whatever he wants in terms of wrestling to guys that aren't great wrestlers. I mean, you look at it. Against Derek Lewis, pretty easy to take him down, takes him down, gets behind him, gets a rear naked choke, and he beats him. Go back to the fight against Volkan Oezdemir, UFC 220, takes him down, gets him in a man of crucifix, bam, 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 night's over. So with Stipe, you know how good his wrestling is. I'm going to be interested to see how he makes out in this one, because the commentary before the fight was Stipe Miocic is, he prefer a bigger cage. He was fighting for a bigger cage, and then it didn't happen. So he comes into this one. A lot of people are talking about embedded, countdown. Stipe has a smaller cage in his gym. Yeah, I mean, of course he does. They're really drilling the wrestling. You could see that. They were doing that at his house in front of the cameras. But when those cameras go away, that's the best part of training camp, that you or I or nobody else other than the guys that are in that room are going to see. So I really do think that it comes down to the fact that will Daniel Cormier, at the age that he's at 41, in his retirement fight, he's the type of guy that when fighting's over, who are you going to see on live with Kelly? Is it going to be Stipe Miocic, or is it going to be Daniel Cormier? Is it going to be live with Daniel Cormier and Kelly Ripa, or Stipe Miocic and Kelly Ripa? It's Daniel Cormier. Daniel Cormier set himself up perfectly post-fight, or post-fighting, or post-career, because he's already got the gig with UFC. He's already got speaking engagements. He could be in TV shows. He could do whatever he wants. Stipe Miocic is one of those guys that you have to respect and love the craft. I mean, this is a guy defended the heavyweight title 3 times. Again, the CM Punk shirt, which was a bit of a dig, but back at UFC 203, his first title defense there, after he beat a really tough fighter in Fabrizio Verdum. Then he gets to win at 203 over Overeem, where, Overeem clearly felt the tap. And I see the question here where Francis is saying, Craig, love your channel. You guys kick ass question. Any thoughts about DC at the weigh-ins? I like that. I like the fact that he weighed 235. And I'll bring it up. It might give me a little bit of a lag here when I switch over. We still have 10 minutes before the prelims, so let's hit this one pretty hard because it deserves all the coverage it's going to get. You look at Daniel Cormier in his last fight. So Oezdemir, then he fights Miocic, then Lewis, and then Miocic. And I know maybe we had a misspeaking where we were talking about UFC 220. We said that Daniel Cormier weighed 220 for one of his fights at heavyweight. I think that got misconstrued, or it was one of those ones that was just a slip of the mind. But if we look at the fight, first fight against Stipe, weighs in 246. Then he fights Derek Lewis, 251. Then he fights Stipe at 236. And he weighs in at 236. So I would think for a guy like that, in terms of, hey, what are we going to do for this one? When you're Daniel Cormier, stick to a tough regimented style. He was a guy that 205 hurt, and it hurt to try and cut to get to that weight. And if you want to add your legacy, you got to move up to heavyweight or move back up to heavyweight. He's a guy that needed to really try and start. And I see people are saying prelims don't start for another hour. Well, that's good. That's good to know because I set this show up to be an hour before, which I do every time. Thanks everybody for throwing that one in there because on the app it said it started at 7 p.m. Atlantic and I'm an hour ahead of Eastern. So I tried to get it the right way. And now I'm screwing everybody up in the comments. I am so sorry. That's all that we're getting in the comments. So apologize. Thanks for everybody for tuning or throwing that out there. 1 hour, let's go. Well, I'm not going to spend a whole hour on this one. But for Daniel Cormier, you have to set a goal in mind. So to have him right there, I would want him to make, like you said, 235. So he's been in and around there for the Stipe fights. He makes it at 236 again. Stipe does what Stipe does, weighs in where he does. And so you basically get a carbon copy of what you had before. Well, what are we going to see? Are we going to see crisp boxing combinations from Stipe? Are we going to see nice added pressure that we always see? Or are we going to see Daniel Cormier just chain wrestle and really try and take Stipe down? Stipe's a hard guy to take down, but at the same time, his forward pressure is so good. So for me, I really do think that Daniel Cormier is going to get the win here. I know a lot of people are picking Cormier in terms of the odds over on Best Fight odds. These are close. They're almost pick 'em odds. They actually are right now. I keep saying actually, but Stipe sitting at a minus 107, Cormier minus 115. Normally you get that minus 115, minus 115 action. But yeah, a lot of people are going with Daniel Cormier. I'm going to stick with Cormier. I see some people tossing it out in the comments that they're going with Stipe. If we look over on Instagram, at Fight Night Picks, you can find it there. Stipe Miocic, 44 votes for Miocic, 50 for Cormier. We're really close. If we look over at the voting in the community tab here on the YouTubes, 51% of 954 votes are going with Miocic. So slim margin there. I really do think that Cormier takes the fight to the mat, and we're going to see one of those classic Daniel Cormier fights. It's not going to be the one where, and again, you see him picking Miocic up and kind of dropping him, but I do think that that Cormier is going to be able to get the win. But if Stipe can set the pace and start the fight setting a pace, Miocic should be able to get the win. So let's go back down through the entire card. We'll break this one back down. If you joined us late, now you get a chance to really see what we're going with. So I'm going to turn all these off. You get to hear my mouse click every time. We'll go all the way back to Kai Kamaka III and Tony Kelly, both making their UFC debuts. Should be a great fight. Kai Kamaka, he's got the background in wrestling. His striking looked great in his last fight, which was about 2 weeks ago. Again, we mentioned it, but he's going to have Ronald Junn in his corner, a vet that had a lot of really big fights. He also has Ray Cooper III, your PFL champ at welterweight. So you kind of get a bit of a flavor for what Kai Kamaka is going to bring. A lot of people thought that he was going to be a really wrestle-heavy guy. Francis, thanks for answering my question. Party on, FNP. Thanks, Francis. Party on, Garth. I'm looking forward to it. Cameron saying, hopefully I had a good vacation. I really did. It was a great vacation. Tony Kelly, he does a lot of things really well. I know he had a great submission in his last fight. It was a guy that was 2-5, coming in on 5 days notice, really lunged forward through looping shots, took Tony Kelly down, and as Tony Kelly's kind of moving around, gets him in a guillotine, finishes him there. Good jiu-jitsu, really good boxing, trains out of a good boxing gym in his native Louisiana. I see it for Kai Kamaka. I don't like the line. I really don't. I know I mentioned it to start the show, but yeah, Kai Kamaka coming in here more than a 2-1 favorite, minus 227. I'd stay away from it. I like Kai Kamaka. I think he's going to win. This isn't like I wouldn't call this like the biggest lock of the night because again, somewhat unpredictable. Tony Kelly fought the better competition so far in his career, but that was 5 years ago when he took on Levi Miles and Kevin Aguilar. But again, that was a really long time ago. So is what it is. Chris Dawkis, Parker Porter, as big of a coin flip as you can get because again, this is one of those more regional scene type of heavyweight fights. You have CES's Parker Porter taking on CFFC's Chris Dawkis. Dawkis was supposed to avenge his first career loss, second career loss, the Sean Teed fight. Either way, it was Teed's pro debut. They're supposed to be fighting at CFFC this week. That's scrap. Dawkis gets the call to the UFC to take on Parker Porter. Porter is one of those guys, overhand right, closes distance, really heavy hands, throws some low kicks to set things up, but not as movement heavy or as driven as Chris Dawkis. To me, it's one of those fights that looks like old style heavyweight, new style heavyweight. There's always a chance Parker Porter could land the knockout punch. I think there's good value in Chris Dawkis. I'm taking him here. Matt was in agreement with me last week. Next fight, Livinha Souza and Ashley Yoder. Listen, it's always a tough one to call a women's strawweight. I think Livinha Souza has all the potential in the world. The fight against Brianna Van Buren definitely didn't go well, but I think that Souza is definitely going to be able to get it done. So appreciate it from Giuliano DiMartini, another 5 from the DiMartini clan. Look forward to your analysis. I appreciate you and everybody that's hit up the super chat because these comments are coming in hot and heavy. So I really do appreciate it. Ray Marshall saying I have Dawkis Porter under. It should be a good one. But yeah, like I said, I'm taking Souza to get the win over Ashley Yoder. I think that should be a good one. Should be an interesting fight. Ashley Yoder's fought tough competition. Hasn't always gotten the wins over that top competition, though. And we're talking about Souza that has fought some decent names. I mentioned them. Inoue was one of them. Former Invicta champ, like I said. So, next fight, TJ Brown taking on Danny Chavez. Should be a good one. You got a clash of styles. Brown with his jiu-jitsu. Danny Chavez with his striking ability. Great boxing. Really good kickboxing. and he can really do it in a lot of different ways. Regional scene champion, but it is a tough one to tell, and I see a lot of people popping around in the comments. Mukhtar is asking about Dos Santos. I took Dos Santos. Let's see who else is here. Patriots fan 12, new to the channel. I appreciate you. And your Patriots are going to have a tough year with a lot of opt-outs and no Tom Brady. But hey, maybe this is the year that Cam Newton takes him to the promised land. So looking forward to that. Trent Bossingham tossing out your picks. I appreciate the super chat. Merab, Miller, O'Malley, Santos, Dawkis, and Stipe. I like Merab for sure. I picked Vinc Pichelle. That's such a coin toss of a fight. Arts of Fly Beatbox. When does the fight start in Europe? It's 0-0 here. It starts in about an hour, so hopefully that helps you. I'm not in Europe, as you can hear from me. Merab. So I've got Merab. I don't have Miller. I've got Vinc Pichelle. I've got O'Malley for sure, but again, that's one of those ones that, holy crow, like we're getting up to 3-1. Do you bother throwing it in there? Santos, yeah. Let's see. You've got Dawkis, I like that. And Stipe if you want. I like Cormier in this one all day. But again, in this fight right here, TJ Brown taking on Danny Chavez. I think the grappling's going to win out for TJ Brown, the short notice fight for Danny Chavez. I think it's a good one for TJ Brown. Your next fight, Vera Jandiroba taking on Felice Herrig. I see this one for Jandiroba. Yes, there's a path to victory if she can keep it standing. Felice Herrig can get the win. Blue Star Seed saying, I want the dude with the mullet to fight again. He said he's going back to fight camp soon if you're talking about Tanner Bozer from Edmonton. But yeah, I'm going to stick with Vera Jandiroba. GVCKD spams L2. Hitting up the super chat. I appreciate you. You've been a fan of the channel for a long time, so thank you. Chrissy J, we're in the wrong place, but all right. I mean, yeah, let's give props to everybody. But yeah, I've got Vera Jandiroba in this fight for sure. Her grappling is second to none. Her jiu-jitsu is great, and I think that's going to win her the fight. I know Felice Herrig's had success on the ground, but in total, I don't think it's going to do it in this fight, especially with the major reconstructive surgery on the knee. You really have to question it. Mo saying, is Chavez a champ in another organization, a smaller regional promotion? You got a win not that long ago. I might as well tell you what it was. Let's see. It's going to take a while to load up while I'm still talking, but I need to know. Yeah, Danny Chavez fought not that long ago. It was with Global Legion FC7. He fought a little under a month ago against 6-2 Dylan Kalla. If you get a chance and you want to go back to check out our prediction video, I know I talked about that one a little while ago. Landing Production saying, please do these every week. Super interactive, awesome engagement. This channel will have 1 million subs one day. I hope so. I cross my fingers, but I do these every week. So I really appreciate you tuning in for this one. Hopefully you can all tune in next week. Yeah, this chat's kind of going insane, so it's kind of tough to follow. But next one, like I said, taking Pichelle to get the win over Jim Miller. Probably, and I'll be honest, and we're as honest as we are, even if we're getting them wrong, we'll toss them out there at the end of the night. We'll give you kind of an idea. But yeah, this is probably the least confident pick on this card. I'm going with Vinc Pichelle. Matt went with Jim Miller. I see a split in all the picks. I'm going to keep it with, like I said, with Vinc Pichelle. I think the boxing, if he's able to really keep pressure on Jim Miller and not get stuck into a sub, he should be able to get the win. So sticking with Vinc Pichelle there. John Dodson, Merab Dvalishvili. I mean, Merab Dvalishvili is a lot bigger. That's going to happen in just about every John Dodson fight, but I think Merab's got the ability. John Dodson's a tough guy to keep down, and Merab's the type of guy that he'll get a guy down and then the guy gets back up, and then he gets him back down and then they get right back up. I think the only people that are going to beat Merab Dvalishvili, you have to be a really good striker or a really good wrestler. That's how you do it. So that's kind of the way there. But I don't see it for John Dodson. He's beaten a lot of big prospects. He beat Nathaniel Wood in his last time out, finished him, which was kind of a surprise because he was losing the fight. But it should be a good one. If you want to talk fight of the night, this is definitely a good pick for it. Steppen Park saying Dodson will gas. I don't think that he will, but you're going to start to worry about that past 35 at 135. Let's see. Booch, I hate betting against Dodson, but I have. Mukhtar, Keep up the great work. When I make it because of your knowledge, I will not be forgetting you. Well, I appreciate you. And landing production, your insight is helpful. I don't think most people care if they're wrong, as long as it's not all the damn time. Well, if you want to get an idea of where my picks are at, they're in the comments or in the description below every video. Again, like I said, as honest as we can be, we toss them down there. We might do a little bit more in terms of that stuff with the website, because we're not really using the website much. You can find it there, fightnightpicks.net. There's video content, there's written content, there's great stuff. I saw Cameron was in the chat here earlier. He's a contributor there as well. So moving into the next fight, sticking with Herbert Burns, it was kind of a lock of the week at the start of the week. It's not a lock of the week now because of the weight miss, 149.5. That's bad. Daniel Pineda, if he doesn't win by finish, he gets finished. He can certainly finish fighters. And again, if you look at it in terms of his last 2 fights, really big wins over in PFL, supposed to fight in the finals. I think Herbert Burns still going to be able to get it done here. I might even hazard to take an over here. And if Pineda gets a win, probably going to be a decision win for Pineda and not a finish. It's tough to finish Herbert Burns. JDS, Rozenstruik, great kickboxing. You know that. Junior Dos Santos, if he can really get those boxing combinations together, should be able to win it. Sticking with Junior Dos Santos. O'Malley Vera, I'm going with O'Malley. I think this has the possibility of being a fight in the night. It should be a great fight. Sean O'Malley, one of the biggest hype guys out there. If you look at the first episode of UFC's Embedded, instead of putting Cormier or Miocic, who were in the main event in the GOAT fight, they put Sean O'Malley's picture on there. Over 1 million views. Can you believe that? That's insane. Probably your most hyped prospect from Dana White's Contender Series. They say that he's, got the highest ceiling, this and that. I mean, Jeff Neal's ranked. So Jeff Neal, one of those guys there. And then if we look at our main event, going with Cormier to get the win over Miocic. So hopefully everybody enjoyed this preview show. I really appreciate everybody for tuning in. There's definitely a lot that goes into these ones. And yeah, I certainly appreciate everybody for hitting it up. Like I said, the super chat. Make sure you check out our picks for next week's card. You got Pedro Munoz taking on Frankie Edgar. We're going to be taping those tonight, Matt and I, while we watch UFC 252. So I'm really looking forward to it. Appreciate all the subs. We were at 1,000 at the start of the year. Now we're at 11,000. We just passed 11,000 today. So that's insane. Just focusing on, continuing to level up. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Hopefully you all enjoy the fights. If we get some bad beats, we get them. And yeah, enjoy the fights.
It's time
For 15 minutes of non-stop MMA, tackling the biggest news in the sport. Head into the chat and let us know how you feel. Live from Fredericton, New Brunswick.